Hello students, welcome to Ishwari Tanisha channel. Students, we are starting preparation for NEET 2025 chemistry. So students, if you are finding chemistry difficult, you can watch my videos which will be taught in a very simplest way. So chemistry you will find it very easy. So today we are starting with class 11 organic chemistry. So students, if you are studying in class 11 or class 12 and if you are preparing for NEET examination, you can watch these videos. So today what we are going to learn is the first important concept in some basic principles and techniques, that is finding the number of sigma and pi bonds. So students, this concept is very important from NEET point of view as well as your board examination. See, in NEET 2023, this question was asked. In pyridine, you have to find the number of sigma bonds and the number of pi bond. So now first let us know what is the meaning of sigma bond and pi bond. So students, sigma bond and pi bond. So what is sigma bond and pi bond means? Sigma bond is nothing but whenever orbitals overlap along the axis. Suppose I will be taking s orbital. So you know that s orbital, p orbital, d orbital and f orbital. So there are four orbitals. So here in organic chemistry we will be using mostly s and p orbital. So sigma bond, when it will be formed? When two s orbital overlap along the axis. So this is the axis. Along the axis, if two s orbital overlap. So here this is the overlapping. So if they overlap sidewise, it results in the formation of sigma bond. So this is s orbital and this is s orbital. So another method is one s orbital can overlap with one p orbital along the axis. So here you can see this is the overlapping. So even this results in formation of the sigma bond. So this is s orbital and this is p orbital. So if it overlaps like this along the axis, it results in the formation of sigma bond. What is one more method? Another method is, so this is p orbital, this is second p orbital. So when they are overlapping along the axis, so here this is the overlapping. So here this is one p orbital, this is second p orbital. So if it overlaps like this sideways, along the axis, if it overlaps along the axis, it results in the formation of sigma bond. So overlapping along the axis. So along the axis, if the orbital overlap, then it results in the formation of sigma bond. So coming to pi bond. So how a pi bond will be formed? If the orbitals overlap sidewise. So you can see this is the overlapping of 2p orbital. So it is overlapping here sideways. So this results in the formation of pi bond. So one p orbital overlaps with another p orbital sideways. So this results in the formation of pi bond. So this is the difference between sigma bond and pi bond. So students, between carbon atom, you can see single bond will be present. Second is, between carbon atom, you can see double bond present. And between carbon atom you can see triple bond present. So here if only single bond is present, it is called as sigma bond. If double bond is present, one will be sigma bond, another will be pi bond. If triple bond is there, one will be sigma bond, second will be pi bond, third will be pi bond. And here if a bond is present between carbon and hydrogen, even here if single bond is present, then it will be a sigma bond. Is that clear? If single bond is present, it will be a sigma bond. If double bond is present, one will be sigma bond, second one will be pi bond. If triple bond is present, one will be sigma bond and other two will be pi bond. So now using this method, let us solve some questions. So at the end we will solve the NEET 2023 question which is given here. So at the end we will solve this. So now we will take simple example and we will solve. So in this first question, we have to find the number of sigma bond and pi bond. So first what you have to do is, so students write the structure, complete structure of the molecule. That is carbon, double bond carbon. To this carbon, two hydrogen atoms are attached. So write separately like this, hydrogen, hydrogen. To this carbon, two hydrogen atoms are attached, hydrogen and hydrogen. So now you count the number of sigma bond and pi bond. So we will write here the number of sigma bond present and the number of pi bond present. So here single bond means we know that sigma bond. Single bond, sigma bond. So if double bond is present, one is sigma bond, second one will be pi bond. Single bond means sigma bond. Single bond means sigma bond. So now count how many sigma bonds are there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So totally there are 5 sigma bond and 1 pi bond. So this is how we find the number of sigma bond and pi bond. So we will go for second example. So now this one, even this we will write in the expanded form. Carbon, double bond carbon, and this hydrogen, write like this, hydrogen. Then CH, CH, double bond C, H2. So write one hydrogen here, one hydrogen here. Here also it is CH2. So you can write one hydrogen here and one hydrogen here. So now we will find the number of sigma bond and pi bond. Sigma bond and pi bond. Single bond, sigma bond. Single bond means sigma bond. Double bond, one will be sigma, second will be pi bond. Single bond means sigma bond. Single, it is sigma bond. Single bond, sigma. So here double bond you have sigma bond and one will be pi bond. And single bond means sigma and this is sigma. So now count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there are 9 sigma bond and 2 pi bonds. So this is how we find. So next is benzene. So students, for benzene, I want you to find the number of sigma bond and pi bond in this and write in the comment section. So now I'll solve for this one. So now write the benzene structure like this and then double bond, and here methyl group is attached. So methyl group, carbon, hydrogen, 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 and students, each carbon atom will be having one hydrogen atom. So hydrogen, hydrogen and hydrogen. So now count the number of sigma and pi bond. So this is sigma bond, sigma bond, sigma bond, sigma bond, and here out of double bond, one will be sigma and another will be pi bond. And this also, this bond will be sigma bond, this will be sigma, this will be sigma bond, and here out of double bond, one will be sigma and one will be pi bond, and this will be sigma bond, this will be sigma, and hydrogen atoms will be having sigma bond, and here one sigma and here one sigma bond, and here out of double bond, one is sigma and one is pi bond. So let me write this structure a little bit bigger so that it will be easy for you to understand. So same structure I'll write little bit bigger so that you should not get confused. Carbon, hydrogen, 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 and here double bond. So here hydrogen, hydrogen and hydrogen, correct? So same thing we will do it once again. So here this is sigma bond, this is sigma, and this is sigma bond. So out of this two, one is sigma bond, one is pi bond, and this is sigma bond, this one sigma, this is sigma bond. This two, one is sigma, one is pi, and this is sigma bond, this one sigma bond, this is sigma. Out of two, one is sigma and second is pi, and here this is sigma bond and again this is sigma bond. So now count the number of sigma and pi bonds now. So sigma bond and pi bond, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15. So there are 15 sigma bond and 3 pi bonds. Okay. So now students, these two questions I have taken from the textbook. So you can see here. So this is the textbook, and here problem 12.2. So they have 12.1. How many sigma and pi bonds are present? So two questions are given. We will solve those two questions. So you can see these are the two questions. So write the expanded form. Hydrogen, carbon, triple bond, carbon, hydrogen, double bond, carbon, hydrogen. So this is the structure. So now single bond means sigma bond. Triple bond, one will be sigma, second will be pi bond, third will be pi bond. Single bond means sigma, single bond sigma, and here one will be sigma bond, another will be pi bond. Sigma bond, sigma, and sigma. So now write the number of sigma and pi bonds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there are 10 sigma bond. 1, 2, 3. So there are 3 pi bonds. Second question. So carbon, 2 hydrogen atoms are there. Hydrogen, double bond, carbon, hydrogen, hydrogen. 1, 2 and 3. So now this is sigma bond, pi bond, pi bond. This is sigma, and all these are sigma bond. So the number of sigma and pi bonds you can write here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there are 9 sigma bond, 1, 2. So there are 2 pi bonds. So this is the question which is given in the textbook. So now we will solve this question which is given in NEET examination. So now I'll write this expanded structure of pyridine, that is nitrogen, lone pair of electron, double bond, and students, carbon atom will be having total 4 bonds, 1, 2, 3. So you have to write 1 hydrogen here. This carbon 1, 2, 3. So 1 hydrogen atom will be there. So hydrogen, and hydrogen. So each carbon atom will be having 1 hydrogen atom. So now we will count the number of sigma bonds. This is sigma bond, this is sigma, this single bond. This single bond is sigma bond. Out of this two, one is sigma, one is pi. And here this is sigma bond, this is sigma. Out of this two, one is sigma, one is pi. And this is sigma bond, and this is sigma, and this is sigma. Out of this two, one is sigma bond and one is pi bond. So now count how many sigma and pi bonds are present. So sigma bond, pi bond, and also they have asked how many lone pairs are present. So lone pair of electron. So sigma bond 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So totally there are 11 sigma bond, and then 1, 2, 3. 3 pi bonds and 1 lone pair of electron. So this is the question which is given in NEET 2023 examination. So students, is this easy? If question is asked, find the number of sigma and pi bonds, whether you will be able to do it? Yes. Okay. So students, in the next video I'll be teaching next concept. So students, I have already done many videos on electrochemistry. So if you're feeling physical chemistry difficult, you can watch those videos. And also on SN1 reaction, name reactions, SN1 reaction, SN2 reactions, and some of the name reactions I have already uploaded the videos. So you can go to the playlist and you can watch those videos. So I'll meet you in the next video, students. Bye bye.